Thank you, Samantha and Kate and Erin. Sorry, I'm sick and distracted and I'm going to put on my timer, and if I go over time, you'll hear crickets. I'm going to try that out. I am just going to read from Half of What They Carried Flew Away, and if you can't hear me in the back, just do this or something if I start getting quieter. And I think I'll read the first, third, and fifth section, or 5 sections. So you'll get a little bit of the beginning, middle, and end. And I don't know that you need to know this or not, but the one thing I'll tell you about it is that I don't know if I was pretending or prompting myself to try to write a novel, so this is what ended up happening. First residence, desire. What they wanted most was to see things they had never seen before. When they were people, they felt relief. They were on a new sexual continent, willing to proclaim anything. They couldn't sleep. Forgot to start with crickets. They were on a new sexual continent, willing to proclaim anything. They couldn't sleep. It was impossible for them to choose whether or not to be savage. They felt something. They indulge as a result of repeated colonization. They make armies. They decide they are as small as ants. It happens on the cellular level. It happens as a result of frustration, like daffodils in the middle of the Pacific. It was already happening, like the sun in this place. Their lungs helped them to arrive. Although questions came up again later as a result of loss, they proceeded by these few simple rules. Their book deals with disappearances and the phonic pattern of location. Please, they cried, we can't really describe movement. Nowhere did they manage to set up organisms. For example, the current obsession with the pupa would not suffice. They survived by projecting themselves. They were elusive. They tried to embrace one another, a brutality the color of skin prolonged into whatever they were saying. Some superhuman, milky sleep remaining. They were fenceless, vegetation filling all their cells. Where were they heading? Were they alone? They trembled. They embedded themselves in furniture after someone threw a stone at them. It's a nice feeling, they thought. There are 2 worlds inside them, the world and the sky. One living organism, a marriage of space and inner catastrophe. They are referring to negation, to the deepest blue, but it's hard to get the blue of this sky, they say. Is it the same blue as that blue over there? It is true, they think, to question the language the blue has given them. Their eyes can only reach so far, even hooked together. They cannot bring that blue next to this blue. What is this blue called, they wonder? What is that blue? From a historical perspective, they were strange, entangled like vines in summertime between skin and clothes. They wanted to gallop between proper nouns, to touch the sky without remaining. They were difficult sentences. During the day, they were bones. They were living spaces, it was fair to say, shaped volumes, sites, configurations. They glowed. At this moment, they were mainly sensory, a material that reorders the shape of the room they were in. It goes through them, it disperses. How many landing sites were there? Everything was over in a flash. They came forward as a portion of leaving, plus the world and all its contingencies. They were widely and diffusely coupling in all directions. It was natural for them to be affected by their surroundings, to alternate what provokes, what entices, blossoming out of them. They could dictate a living body or wander through it and travel abroad, although the question of shape might not confirm exactly when or where they took their leave. They, like all others, persuaded by it. Fields and air accompanied them. What they wanted most was to be persuaded, to be moved. It was not easy for them to move. They were like the North Pole entering a strange blue world. Everything around them bulked and heaved in their distance or proximity. They could not eat. Their first incarnation would be a sentence. They would be swimming all over it as microbiotic entities. I would dream about them and see them as films across the surface of my eyes. They would be so interested in themselves too, like windmills. How different everything is when need takes shape. The diverse impulses become frightening. They had to think of that porosity as a tool, as an activity they could isolate to one's surface. If the paragraph is a landscape, it has a beginning. This has been acknowledged. It fastens and unfastens from top to bottom. This is the interview of their first crossing. How might the weather confess an experience? What effect is produced? Does a photograph represent an introverted or an extroverted moment? How transparent is this genre? Is it a conceptual event? Is it a document of performance itself? How might the degree of transparency map this object? Is it a dog lapping of milk? Is it informal? Is their neighborhood in an industrial zone or a pastoral zone? What is the sculptural fragment that is revealed by this city? Does it have longevity? They were categories in the retina, things that were setting in motion, the walking grammar of motion they were between, where each hand reminded them of mountains. It was pointless to fight, the flow of the breath defining each mood. What is the organ of touch, they thought? It is not the skin, but somewhere between providence and flying. Take the woods found within this body and chew them. Chew them until they splinter into ever smaller woods and eat them. May they have the space of Everests inside you. This is the answer of their first crossing. I am a construction worker. I am a home. I am abroad. I am nervous. I am being proposed to by this essay. I am a variant of the semantic difference within sameness. I am tilting against the windmills. I establish a continuity. I cannot pin down one side of the territory. I am an open mouth and a factory. I am yellow or red. I was asked if I am myself. I am myself. Third residence, emanation. Sky lifts its wings over wooded areas, small twisted necks cracking like thunder. They are in a field again. I would not say they live in a country, not in one the tongue orders. Oh, to strike out on their own, they find rifles and make cooing sounds, now and again the sound of bone. Furrows are created by circumstance, a type of fluid to recognize transformation. The above does not impose. Inner changes played out in outer terrains. Nothing happens to the images. These borders they live on, interrelated, between the body's procreation and use. I have been told it is unfair to say the word body again. That's fine. It's easy enough to ignore. You guys got that joke. This is the answer of their second crossing. I am legal. I line the furrows. I see the white men with their guns. I feel I am one of them. I shake out my wrinkles. I shake out my headdress. I shake out strong entanglements to which I am bound. I hunt personal narratives caught between criminality and hunger. I do not speak for Bridges or Minnesota. I give directions to the windmills. I become myself. I feel myself crossing over the river. The river has a dark face, much darker than the sea. The river remembers, living resembles it, that spring is growing, composed of many songs. My windows and my doors are open. I can hear how it is turning into evening. It is comprehensible that they are becoming clearer. Separate spots here and there gather. Not even the smallest thing touches anymore. They say song is growing muffled in the storm. They tell you something large, like the first arrival of a deer with human lips. Speak up, you are expanding with all the rest. Do you know these hosts, these analytic techniques of osmosis? They are crucial. They should exist. They should plagiarize. They are always men, but this time they are women. Therefore, what you are quite conscious of must evolve. Therefore, a closure. How did this all begin? In the 17th century, existence was a subjective thing. Thus, the linguistic church was born. Thus, the obscure point of femininity. Until a photographer came and cut a photograph of our face in half so that it would be symmetrical, I did not believe in deities. All color patterns on birds, fish, mammals, the same on both sides. In the end, to tighten, to believe in a sense of urgency. Ignite. They sat like a boat on the dusty ground. Ignite. The ducks were there to be eaten. Ignite the wash basin, the feathers, sand. Time passed. Ignite the waterproof, the upturned clods of earth. Ignite their beaks that dove and reemerged white as translucent pebbles. Ignite rabbit's teeth. Ignite spindle trees. Ignite gentle, impossible embraces of the jellyfish. Ignite a very small white cloud. Fifth resonance, territory. Emphasis impels them. They belong to a clearly defined category of refuge. But what are they doing in that cottage? What are their thoughts, their sorrows? What is the merit of those who came after them? Everything hinges on distance, the illusion found in plant or animal which transfigures community. They are terrestrial. They hold to clouds. This is the interview of their final crossing. What is the emanation of the image? Is its gaze representative of air or water? When did you first appear? Is this a translation of appearance or an example? Are you living in one season or many? How does an outline show these distances? Do you regret being not human or human? What warrants the use of juxtaposition? Who is speaking to you on that hill? Are you in any way a substance or a color? What revelation is in it? How would you define a glacier? How many times have you crossed this river? I shouted at them, and as the llamas came down the hill, I went up toward them. I had no desire to leave that hill. I could wound 18 men before I could be touched. I asked them to take me across the river. I stood scanning the landscape with a telescope. I was so far from the border, I might as well fire my gun. Territory can transform them into their opposites, but what is transfiguration, they ask? Are we the element editorial or botanical? They feel themselves most in the basin of the river. They feel themselves rise at those surfaces, tied and bound to shape and movement. Of the three types of movement, they prefer the limbs. How they appear in the foreground seduces and possesses us. We linger inside the memory of limbs, violence that trespasses against those edges. They maintained their identity as eyes and ears. They did not lack writing. Theirs was a voice resounding from a throat situated someplace, in a field or similar setting. Intonations became clear. You heard murmuring of their togetherness, saw incisions and markings on grain and the weather-stained. They passed lightly over inscribed surfaces, their eyes active and remote. I saw them expanding on the mountainous shores. I should have insisted upon turning back. I felt sick, horror-struck, and utterly bewildered. Occasionally I exchanged a silent pressure of the hand, but any other interchange of feeling seemed impossible. They needed a language to communicate with themselves. They put bones, pieces of bark, feathers into a tape recorder. The meaning of the word forehead came out. They come to the open between each breath. They breathe out, grow gills on each hand. A seed grows in their throat and a river pours out. Storms dissolve in their saliva. They look up at the vast terrain they've crossed over. I plug my ears with wax. I look at my fingers. I battle the silence and the red. I hold it in my hand. It is the result of men. It is the result of deep amnesia. They're caught between being treated as criminals and being able to eat, but history is not a moving personal narrative about dispossession. In fact, it occupies itself at war with itself. It creates oppositional dualities, unnatural boundaries. They rediscover or uncover the proclamation of the crossroads of the land. This is the answer of their final crossing. I do not know what it is I am like. I see myself proceed in forms and lines, an aggregate between the mass and the marginal. I not and annul all kinds of others. I attain a visual and sonorous structure. I am the family replaced by community. I am above all in flight from flight. I undertake not to represent, interpret, or symbolize, but to make maps and draw lines. I think I am like these very transactions. I am like the fabric immersing this assemblage. I circumscribe the field. I live in the basin of the river. I am neither a woman nor a man in the light. I am like an animal that was slain. Thank you.